I wrote about this also years ago for NRA blog, and I wrote about it for I think Ground View Outdoors. And I've written several articles on hunting with air rifles, and how air rifles, a lot of people don't realize it, are the real guns that won the West. Right? You look at the Girandoni 46 caliber air rifle. I mean, Lewis and Clark carried that on their expedition way back in 1803. You have what, 13 volumes that make the Lewis and Clark journals, and you have 39 mentions of an air rifle that they used on the expedition. 39 mentions. And what they would do is when they encounter tribes, they would go and they would do a show of firepower, right? And they would demonstrate how they could shoot 20 rounds accurately in less than 30 seconds from this Girandoni 46 caliber air rifle, and not use any powder, no smoke. And I could direct you to the article. If anybody ever reads this and wants to know where they can read that article, I'll share that information with you. But
yeah, we'll put the link in here.
Time and time again, when the natives would see this show of firepower from the Lewis and Clark expedition, they would be in awe and let the expedition pass. Right? I mean, they literally used that air rifle to safely make passage from point A to point B and literally chart the Northwest. They did it with an air rifle. He also took it, I believe, if I remember correctly, he also trusted air rifle in a firefight. And they also hunted with this air rifle. They were taking big game with this air rifle, right? So, man, if they were developing an air rifle that was capable of taking big game in 1803, or even earlier, back in the late 1700s, and why can't we trust air rifles that are built today, these big bore air rifles, to hunt with in 2020? And it's funny the amount of pushback I got publishing those articles from people that automatically assume that you're talking about a 17 caliber pellet rifle. No, man, I'm talking about air rifles that give you more momentum and more kinetic energy than a handgun.
Didn't you, and this just goes to show how much we've hung out at POMA conferences over the years, didn't you write that, not just write that as an article for one of the magazines, but didn't you write it for a final exam a couple of years ago?
Man, the first time I wrote it, well, see, you're right, because I'll tell you when it was. The first time I wrote, and I don't remember what year it was, but the first time I wrote that article, I wrote an article of that kind. I wrote it for the NRA blog, and I knew a lot of people were interested because 5 months after it had published, it was still in the top 10 most read on the NRA blog. Right, it was still in the top 10 articles. That's not a pat on the back for me, man. I mean, that's the interest that people have in air rifles, right? I mean, it's still in the top. This is an article about air rifles that was in the top 10 on the NRA blog, right? That's about the subject, not about the writer. And then I wrote another article that is still out there for Grandview, and I can't remember. You probably have seen both, but I mean, you've been around long enough that the one that you're remembering specifically was the one I wrote for Lars Dale's site at the NRA blog.
Okay, gotcha.
And it was a good article. The one I wrote for Grandview is even better because I include a bunch of statements that are straight out of Lewis and Clark journals.
Did they kill an elk? Did they kill an elk, or is it just deer that they were killing? You know?
I only know about, I've had people speculate that they were elk hunting, but I know they were hunting deer with it.
Okay.
And I know that they carried it into combat. And I also know that their reasoning for taking the air rifle was specifically to demonstrate a show of firepower, of superior weaponry, right? To demonstrate that they could shoot rapidly. I mean, they did a demonstration with that air rifle to civilians before they ever left for their expedition, right? But they only had one. And the idea was that they're going to be able to go out there and demonstrate these shoots without using powder. The thing that was going to blow their minds was repeatable, accurate shooting and not using any powder, right? Those were the big things that they were putting all their, I guess, their hopes and dreams in, right, and able to gain passage past these tribes. They were hoping to show that they were shooting accurately and not using powder, and they were hoping that the natives would think, well, gosh, they have one, there's 20 more in the keel vessel in the river. Right? And so they didn't want any part of that. But the truth is, they only had the one.
Lewis and Clark, a group of guys that traveled the country in 1803 with an air rifle and lost their compass like in the first couple of days.
Yeah.
You just don't get guys like that anymore.
And the funny thing is they use something similar to a bicycle pump to fill the reservoir in the stock of this Girondoni air rifle, right? And I think the reservoir held somewhere around 800 foot-pounds of air, right? But you know how many repetitions it took for somebody to fill that reservoir one time?
I'm guessing a couple thousand.
Somewhere around 1,500 repetitions, right? So some poor sap underneath Lewis and Clark's leadership, under their authority, had to, he would look at him and say, hey, I need you to go fill the air reservoir in this Girondoni. And I can't imagine, like, I literally might just like walk off and start walking back east.
It's like
I'm going to do a bicycle pump 1,500 times.
Being at camp and being like, all right, you've got water duty, you've got cooking duty. Jerry, you're on airgun duty.
Yeah, I'm like, I quit. You doing it?
I'm just going to give myself up to the natives right now.
But they did. I mean, for people who are airgun enthusiasts, I mean, really, if they haven't read up on Lewis and Clark's expedition and the role that airguns played in charting the Northwest, they're doing themselves a really, real disservice.
Well, it would make a lot of sense for them to have an air rifle because they were going through hostile territory.
I can tell you it makes a lot of sense right now because you can't find any ammo anywhere either.
Yeah, you're not kidding, right? Kidding. Interesting times.